Clear Gospel.
Last time you were here, you mentioned that the baton to lead your father's church was passed down to you. What would your advice be to anyone who feels they are being called into a ministry they hadn't foreseen?
Number one, pray. I mean that like as legitimately as I'm saying it. I mean, pray, seek God. If you didn't foresee it, it doesn't mean that it wasn't for you. David didn't know he was king until Samuel showed up. So it is possible for God to not necessarily tell you, exactly what's going on until the timing is right. And a lot of times God's timing disrupts whatever we're currently involved in. And so I would say pray, because you can easily get overwhelmed by the call, by the assignment that God has for you. But if you're called to ministry, it means that literally the relevance of your voice is a necessity for this hour. And you have to own that. You have to embrace that something about what you have to say or what you have to offer ministerially is beneficial to somebody out there whose ear is tuned into the frequency of your voice. So I would say pray and ask God to give you the boldness to walk it out.
Wow. Oof, I feel like it's speaking to me as well. Okay, it's walk it out. Walk it out. Now, you're quite active on social media because you see that quite often. Now, one of your hashtags is tips for healthy marriages. Can you share some tips with us?
Sure. How much time do we have?
For about a couple of minutes. I think you can hit something in a couple of minutes.
Tips for healthy marriages. Communicate.
Wow.
I think one of the ills of marriages right now is that is like social media. It's devices that have a tendency to become a supplement for actual communication, actual face-to-face encounters. And nowadays, because everything is accessible through our devices, we have a tendency to use them more than we actually talk one to another. And the substrata for any real strong relationship is communication. You have to know your mate. And if you don't learn your mate early on, it can become a disaster later on. Here's another tip for healthy marriages. Allow for evolution. The man who I was when I married my wife 20 years ago is not the man I am today. I look the same. Give or take a pound or two.
You always got to say the pound. You always got to say about the weight. It's always the weight, a little bit.
Because I got to be honest.
Good food.
Good food, good living, good living. I put on some weight. I've been working on turning it back into muscle now. So pray my strength in the Lord. But the man I was emotionally, mentally and intellectually is not who I am today. I've evolved. And if you fall in love with a version of your mate and don't give them permission to grow, to let life teach them lessons, then you lock them in to what is manageable for you, but not necessarily manageable for your life together. And unfortunately, that's one of the things that God will tell you is if you're ever going to become, you got to be willing to forfeit who you currently are so you can become who you're supposed to be. And in marriage, that plays a heavy role in why some marriages fail, because you fall in love with one version of a person, not understanding that that person who you fell in love with can grow with you, can evolve with you. And as the two become one, that union, when you first get married, it is new. It is pristine. It has no dirt on it. But as life happens, you get some dirt on it, so a little bit of grime here and there. And I'm not saying this from a negative perspective. I'm just saying life happens. Yeah. And if you're not willing to allow evolution and growth, then you trap your mate in a place where they really should grow from. And I'm not talking about growing apart. I'm saying growing up together. Yeah. And if you don't allow that, I think you can really get in trouble.
Woo, man. Another word right there. That is brilliant. Thank you so much for that tip.
Premier Gospel. Premier Gospel.
For more great music and interviews, tune into Gospel Drive with me, Lady T, weekdays from 3 p.m. on Premier Gospel Music for Life.